Language and relationships. How does our verbal communication impact the way we see the world and the relationships that we have? Let's start with the fact that language is a symbolic thing. It has a symbolic nature to it. The symbols that we use, oftentimes physical symbols or symbols that are based in words, are very arbitrary. Keep in mind that the meaning of a word or a symbol is not necessarily in that symbol or in that word, but in the people that use them. For example, in the past, the word nice used to mean silly, foolish, or simple, which is far from the compliment it is today. Another one would be the word silly. In its earliest uses, it referred to things worthy or blessed. From there, it came to refer to the weak and vulnerable, and more recently, to someone who is foolish. Another interesting one is the word clue, which centuries ago, a clue was a ball of yarn. So if you think about it, it's like threading your way through a maze, and you'll see how we got from yarn to key bits of evidence that help us solve things. Another one is naughty. Long ago, if you were considered naughty, you had naught or nothing. Then it came to mean evil or immoral, and now you're just badly behaved. So the people are the ones putting the meaning in these words, not the words themselves. Here's a few more. Hussy. Believe it or not, hussy comes from the word housewife, with several sound changes clearly, and is used to refer to the mistress of a household, not the disreputable woman it refers to today. And another one, which I think is the most interesting, the word guy. This word is an eponym. It comes from the name of Guy Fawkes, who was part of a failed attempt to blow up Parliament in 1605. Folks used to burn his effigy, a Guy Fawkes, or a guy, and from there it came to refer to a frightful figure. In the U.S., it has come to refer to just men in general, which I find that fascinating. So the words are not the basis of meaning. The meaning comes from the people. Symbols are the same way. If you've ever seen this symbol before, oftentimes we see that as meaning peace and relaxation and joining together and being happy and calm and peaceful. But where did that symbol even begin? If you break it down, you start with just that kind of curved triangle at the end, which represents nuclear, and then the straight line represents disarmament. So together, it literally means, based on the foundation of the original symbol, nuclear disarmament, which kind of makes sense as to how we kind of got to where we are, but see how much it has adjusted and changed over time to mean something slightly different. So meaning are not in words. It is the people that impact the meaning, not the word. And possible factors of misunderstanding or harmful language can come from not knowing this key factor, that meanings are not in words. We will look at connotation and denotation, polarization, all of these things in order to really see how language can impact our relationships. If meaning are not in the words themselves, what are they in? Where does the meaning come from? If you look at a dictionary definition of a word, that is what's called a denotative meaning. It is the literal meaning that we have, as a crew, as a group, have come to agree is what we will define that term as. However, there is also what's called a connotative meaning. Connotation is the emotions and associations connected to a word. It depends on our experiences and how those words have a either positive, negative, or neutral feeling to them, which allows us to interpret them in different manners, thus bringing the meaning in the person, not in the word. For example, if you look at certain words, what would be the difference between the denotative meaning and the connotative meaning? So starting with the word work. If you were to look up work in the dictionary, you would likely see something about earning some kind of wage in exchange for service or product provided, something like that. But if you were to think about work, you and I would all think of things differently. What work exists for us? Not only where do we work, but how do we feel about that work? Another example would be the term romance. While we can look in the dictionary and find a very specific definition of the word romance, we all see romance in slightly different manners, in slightly different ways. What is romantic to one person might be very not romantic to another person. And then finally, an interesting one, and one to be very cautious of, is the word abuse. While there may be one or even multiple meanings within the dictionary definition, the connotation is definitely going to be different, not only for those who are abused themselves, but family members of those that have been abused, or the abusers will see the term abuse as different from what the person being abused will feel. So connotative and denotative meaning impact how we see and experience certain forms of language. Now, polarization is another form of that. Polarization is often referred to as the fallacy of either or. It is basically the tendency to look at the world and describe it in terms of extremes. So we say, you always, or you never. We often see things as one way or another and nothing in between. Now, if you were to sit down and look at a list of words, imagine these list of words come up and you have to think of the extreme opposite for each word. Try it. Think of it. What would be the opposite of the word tall? Short. What would be the opposite of the word heavy? Light. Strong. Weak. Happy. Sad. Legal. Illegal. So each of those words, I am guessing universally, you all were able to think of pretty much the exact same opposite word that I thought of. The extremes, tall, short, heavy, light, and such, are pretty easy to come up with. They pop into your head pretty fast, and there are things that most of us would universally agree on. Polarization is very simple. Now, try and fill in one or two middle terms between these. Tall, short. What would you put in between? Heavy, light. Strong, weak. Pause the video and try to put middle terms in between each of those, at least one or two. You'll notice that it's quite difficult. And in many cases, if you were to do this activity with another person, you would have different meanings in between. Being descriptive to match the situation, to match truly what you're trying to say, becomes very difficult and can be interpreted differently based on the person involved. So in this case, while you may have said in between strong and weak is moderate, somebody else might have said medium or average, and who is to say what average is? So that middle road is difficult, but necessary if we truly want to describe behavior and make our feelings known. We have to be able to describe it in detail and know truly what we're trying to say, instead of just picking the you always or you never statements and not realizing that it's not always, it's not never. It could be that, when we're in this situation, I feel like this topic comes up or this situation occurs. Truly understanding that polarization and connotation and denotation among symbolism and other terminologies can truly impact how we communicate verbally in a variety of situations.